The assembly hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than anything Daniel Pierce had ever seen. The room stretched so far that he could barely see the other end. Tall seats rose up like mountains on all sides, and in those seats sat creatures from 200 different worlds. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of light itself. Daniel stood at a small podium in the center of it all, feeling very small and very alone. He wore his best suit, the one he had bought specifically for this moment. His hands shook slightly as he held his notes, but he kept his voice steady. Earth needed help, and he was here to ask for it. The Zethric Empire had come to their solar system 6 months ago. They had brought huge mining machines and started taking resources from the asteroids near Jupiter. Those asteroids belonged to Earth. Humanity had plans for them, but the Zethric did not care about human plans. Daniel cleared his throat and began to speak. His voice echoed across the enormous chamber. Made loud by alien technology he did not fully understand. He explained the situation carefully. The Zethric were violating the frontier protocols, the laws that were supposed to protect young species like humanity. Earth was asking the Council to make them stop. Before he could finish his first paragraph, he heard laughter. It started with the Zethric delegation, a harsh clicking sound that the translation devices turned into mocking chuckles. Then other species joined in. The laughter grew louder and louder until it filled the whole hall. Daniel stopped speaking. His face felt hot. He looked around, confused and embarrassed. What had he said that was so funny? Chairman Vorath raised one of his 4 long arms. The laughter died down. Vorath was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished stone. His species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, back when humans still lived in caves. He looked down at Daniel with an expression that might have been amusement or might have been contempt. The human wishes to discuss territorial rights, Vorath said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. Perhaps next we should hear from the small animals of the forest about their property claims. More laughter erupted. Daniel felt his stomach twist. This was not going the way he had hoped. He tried again, raising his voice slightly. He talked about the documentation Earth had submitted. He mentioned the laws and protocols that should protect them. He tried to sound confident and professional. Your claim, interrupted a new voice. This came from Ambassador Keleth, who represented the Vryn Collective. Keleth looked somewhat like a large insect with multiple eyes that all seemed to stare at Daniel at once. Your claim is based on living on one planet for 10,000 years. My people control 17 star systems. Why do you think being born somewhere gives you the right to own everything nearby? Several other ambassadors made sounds of agreement. Daniel looked back at the other humans who had come with him. Commander Lisa Hayes sat in the visitor section, her military uniform crisp and proper. She met his eyes and gave a small shake of her head. She had warned him this would happen. She had said the Council would not take Earth seriously. Daniel had hoped she was wrong. He was not wrong. He was exactly right. Chairman Vorath struck a chime that rang through the hall like a bell. Everyone became quiet again. The chairman spoke in a formal tone that somehow made his words even more insulting. The Council has heard Earth's petition. We find it has no merit. The Zethric Empire may continue their operations. Furthermore, Earth should remember that being part of this council is a privilege. If you continue to waste our time with foolish requests, we may revoke your observer status. Observer status. That was all Earth had. They could watch and listen, but they had no vote and no power. And now even that small privilege was being threatened. Daniel stood at the podium for a moment longer. All around him, the delegates were already moving on to other business. They had dismissed Earth completely, as if humanity had never spoken at all. As if Earth did not matter even enough to deserve a proper rejection. He gathered his notes with trembling hands and walked back to his seat. The rest of the session passed in a blur. Daniel barely heard any of it. He kept thinking about what he would tell people back home. How do you explain that the Great Galactic Council, the organization that was supposed to bring justice and order to the galaxy, had laughed at you? When the session finally ended, the human delegation returned to their quarters on the council station. The rooms were nice enough, designed to accommodate human needs, but right now they felt like a prison. General Marcus Webb threw his cap on the table hard enough to make the dishes rattle. They treated us like we were nothing, he said angrily, like we were insects they could just brush away. Because that is what they think we are, Lisa replied. She brought up images on a screen. The images showed the Zethric mining platforms bigger now than they had been last week. They are expanding. 3 new platforms just in the last few days. They know we cannot stop them. Daniel sat down heavily. His whole body felt tired. What do we tell Earth? That we failed? That the mighty council laughed at us and told us to go away? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, we tell them the truth. We tell them that we are alone. That if Earth wants respect from these species, we will have to earn it ourselves. Without their permission. Without their help, General Webb looked at her sharply. You are talking about fighting them. I am talking about surviving, Lisa said firmly. The council showed us today who they really are. They protect the strong and ignore the weak. If we want to change that, we need to show them that humans are not weak. Daniel looked up at her. How do we do that? They have technology that is centuries beyond ours. They have ships and weapons we cannot match. Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a difficult decision. Their technology is old. They have been using the same designs for hundreds of years because they are comfortable, because they do not need to improve, but we do, and that means we will. She pulled up more information on the screen. Ship designs, weapon specifications, training programs, things that Daniel did not fully understand, but that looked impressive. For 3 years, Lisa continued, Earth has been preparing for the possibility that we would need to defend ourselves. We have been studying their technology, learning from it, improving on it. We have been building something they do not know about, something they will not expect. General Webb leaned forward, interested now. What are you saying? I am saying, Lisa replied, that in 6 months the Zethric are going to learn that humans are not as helpless as they think. And so is the Council. Daniel felt something shift inside him. The embarrassment and anger from the Council session were still there. But now there was something else too. Hope and determination. The Council had laughed at Earth today, but maybe, just maybe, Earth would get the last laugh. 6 months had passed since the humiliation at the Galactic Council. Deep under the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, there was a military facility that most people did not know existed. The underground base had been carved out of solid rock over many years. It was here that Earth kept its most important secrets. Admiral Frank Morgan stood in a huge cavern that had been turned into a command center. In front of him were gathered military officers, scientists, and government officials. Everyone here had the highest security clearance. Everyone here knew that what they were about to see could change everything for humanity. Frank pressed a button and a hologram appeared in the air above them. It showed a spaceship unlike anything in Earth's current fleet. The ship was sleek and dangerous looking. Every line of it spoke of speed and power. This is Project Defiance, Frank said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the pride in it. This ship represents 15 years of work. 15 years of taking apart alien technology and figuring out how it works. 15 years of making it better. A woman stepped forward. Dr. Helen Carter was the chief scientist on the project. She had gray hair and wore glasses that made her eyes look bigger. She had spent most of her adult life working on this ship. The Council species gave us their technology, Helen explained, but they gave it to us the way you might give a child a toy. They assumed we would use it exactly as they told us to. They never imagined we would improve it. She changed the hologram to show the inside of the ship. Different systems lit up in different colors. We took their fusion engines and made them 30% more efficient. We studied their energy shields and found a way to make them stronger. We looked at their weapons and made versions that hit harder and charge faster. Senator Patricia Green spoke up. She was in charge of the Defense Committee in the government. How is that possible? Their technology is supposed to be hundreds of years more advanced than ours? Helen smiled. It is more advanced, but it is also old. They have been using the same technology for centuries without changing it much. They are comfortable with what they have, but humans are not comfortable. We are always trying to make things better. We think about problems differently than they do. A military officer stood up. Captain Ryan Foster had been selected to command the new ship. He was young for such an important position, only 35 years old, but he was also one of the best pilots Earth had ever trained. What about the crew, he asked. Aliens have been fighting in space for generations. Our people have only practiced in simulators. Frank changed the hologram again. Now it showed another facility, this one in the Nevada desert. We have been training crews for 3 years in secret. Every pilot, every weapons officer, every engineer has been practicing constantly. They have run through thousands of combat scenarios based on real alien battles. He pulled up files showing different crew members. Lieutenant Karen Hughes has completed 10,000 combat simulations. She can predict enemy movements before they happen. Engineer Paul Martinez can fix any system on the ship in minutes. Navigator Claire Bennett can calculate jump coordinates faster than most alien computers. Senator Green still looked worried. But it is just one ship. How can one ship stand against an entire empire? One ship is the beginning, Frank answered. If we succeed with this ship, we will build 40 more just like it. Shipyards all over Earth are ready to start construction, but first we need to prove that it works. Helen brought back the tactical information. The Zethrik have been getting bolder. They now have mining operations on 3 of Jupiter's moons. They have built a processing station in the asteroid belt. They are not even trying to hide what they are doing anymore. Why would they hide it? Ryan said quietly. They know the Council will not stop them. And they think we cannot, Frank nodded. That changes now. Ryan, you and your crew leave in 72 hours. Your mission is simple. Remove the Zethrik from our solar system. Show them and the Council that humanity will not be pushed around anymore. The room became very quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Earth was about to do something that could either make them respected or make them enemies of powerful alien empires. Senator Green stood up slowly. Admiral, the President has authorized this mission. But I need to hear you say it. Can we really win? Frank looked at her directly. His eyes were steady and confident. Senator, the Zethrik think they are dealing with primitives who barely know how to leave their own planet. They are about to learn what happens when you underestimate humans. Yes, we can win. The meeting continued for several hours. They went over every detail of the plan. The ship would be called the EFS Valor. It would be crewed by 150 of Earth's best people. They would jump to the outer solar system and approach the Zethrik operations carefully. Then they would strike fast and hard. Ryan studied the enemy positions on the tactical displays. The Zethrik had 2 escort ships patrolling the area. They had the big command station that controlled all the mining operations. They had dozens of workers on the platforms. It would not be an easy fight, but Ryan had trained for this his whole life. So had his crew. They knew the ship better than anyone. They had practiced until every movement was automatic. They were ready. Later that day, Ryan visited the Valor where it sat in a hidden orbital dock. The ship was beautiful in a deadly way. Its hull was dark gray, designed to be hard to see against the blackness of space. Weapons ports lined both sides. The engines glowed with barely contained power. Inside, the crew was making final preparations. Karen was at the weapons station, running last-minute checks. Paul was in engineering, making sure every system was perfect. Claire was plotting their jump route, calculating the exact coordinates they would need. Captain on the bridge, someone called out when Ryan entered. He waved for everyone to continue working. How are we looking? He asked. All systems are green, Paul reported from his station. The ship is ready to go. Karen looked up from her console. Weapons are charged and ready. I have target locks programmed for all known Zethrik positions. Claire turned in her seat. Jump courses plotted. We can leave whenever you give the order. Ryan nodded. He looked around at his crew. These people had given up normal lives to train for this mission. Some of them had families they had not seen in months. All of them knew they might not come back. I know you are all nervous, Ryan said. I am nervous too. We are about to do something that has never been done before. We are going to fight an alien military force and we are going to win. Not because we are stronger or because we have better technology. We are going to win because we are human. Because when someone pushes us, we push back harder. The crew members looked at each other. Some smiled. Some nodded. All of them looked determined. The Zethrik came to our home, Ryan continued. They took what was ours. They did it because they thought we could not stop them. In 3 days, we are going to show them how wrong they were. The crew cheered. It was not a loud cheer, but it was strong. It was the sound of people who were ready to fight for their world. Frank visited the ship one last time before it departed. He found Ryan in his quarters looking at pictures of Earth on a screen. The blue planet looked peaceful and beautiful from orbit. It was hard to believe they were about to start a war to protect it. Are you ready? Frank asked. Ryan turned off the screen. As ready as I will ever be. What happens if we fail? Frank was quiet for a moment. If you fail, Earth becomes a target. The Council will see us as violent and unpredictable. Other species might decide to attack us before we become a threat. Everything changes, and if we succeed? If you succeed, Frank said with a small smile. Everything changes anyway. But in a better way, Ryan took a deep breath. No pressure then. Frank put a hand on his shoulder. You are going to do fine. You have the best crew and the best ship. Trust your training. Trust your people, and trust that what you are doing is right. After Frank left, Ryan sat alone in his quarters for a while. He thought about his family back on Earth. He thought about all the people who were depending on him. He thought about the Zethric who had no idea what was coming for them. Then he stood up, put on his uniform jacket, and headed for the bridge. It was time to show the galaxy what humans could do. The EFS Valor floated silently in the darkness beyond Neptune. All the lights on the ship were turned off. Every system was running on minimum power. From the outside, the ship looked like just another piece of space rock drifting in the cold. But inside, the crew was ready for battle. Captain Ryan Foster sat in his command chair on the bridge. His eyes were fixed on the tactical display in front of him. The screen showed the positions of all the Zethric ships and stations in the inner solar system. They were far away, but not for long. Zethric Command Station is holding position in the asteroid belt, reported Lieutenant Karen Hughes. She was at the tactical station, monitoring the enemy. 3 mining platforms are active. 2 escort frigates are on patrol. They are following standard security patterns. Ryan studied the patrol routes. The Zethric ships moved in predictable loops, checking the same areas every few hours. They were not expecting trouble. Why would they? No one had ever challenged them before. Standard and predictable, Ryan said quietly. That is their weakness. Paul, what is our status? Chief Engineer Paul Martinez checked his screens. All systems are ready, Captain. Weapons are charged. Shields are online. The new engines are working even better than we expected. When we jump in, they will not see us coming. Ryan looked at the enemy positions again. The 2 escort frigates were the immediate threat. Each one was bigger than the Valor, and had weapons that could tear through a normal human ship. But the Valor was not normal, and the Zethric did not know that yet. Claire, I need a jump that puts us right between those frigates and the command station, Ryan ordered. When we come out of the jump, I want our weapons locked on targets before they can react. Navigator Claire Bennett worked quickly at her console. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. Course plotted, Captain. We will emerge exactly where you want us. They will not have time to form a defensive position. Ryan took a slow breath. This was it. Everything they had trained for came down to this moment. If they won, Earth would prove it could defend itself. If they lost, everything would be worse than before. All hands, battle stations, Ryan said into the ship-wide communication system. This is not a drill. We jump in 30 seconds. All over the ship, crew members moved to their positions. Weapons officers powered up the gun systems. Engineers stood ready to route power wherever it was needed. Medical teams prepared for possible casualties. Everyone knew their job and everyone was ready. Ryan counted down in his head. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. He thought briefly about his family on Earth. Then he pushed the thought away. Right now, the only thing that mattered was the mission. Execute jump, he ordered. The Valor disappeared from beyond Neptune in a flash of light. Space twisted around the ship as it traveled faster than light itself. For a moment that felt like no time at all and forever at the same time. The ship existed nowhere. Then it emerged back into normal space right in the middle of the Zethric operation. Alarms started screaming on the alien ships. Their sensors had just detected a large unknown vessel appearing from nowhere. The Zethric crew scrambled to their stations trying to figure out what was happening. But the Valor crew was already moving. Weapons locked, Karen announced. Her voice was calm and professional. Firing. The Valor's railguns opened fire. These were not the old chemical weapons that humans had used for centuries. These were magnetic accelerators that launched solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Each shot hit with the force of a small bomb. The first Zethric frigate's shields lit up as the railgun shots slammed into them. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons and small debris. They were not designed to stop the kind of punishment the Valor was delivering. The shields flickered and died in seconds. Then the armor started to fail. Explosions rippled across the frigate's hull. Pieces of the ship broke off and tumbled away. Air and debris vented into space. The frigate started spinning out of control, its engines damaged and its weapons offline. The second Zethric frigate tried to fight back. Its weapons powered up and fired at where the Valor had been. But the human ship was no longer there. Claire had already put the Valor into a spiral pattern that no alien computer could predict. The energy beams from the Zethric ship slashed through empty space. Their targeting systems are too slow, Karen observed. She sounded almost surprised. They are designed for ships that move in straight lines and follow standard patterns. Then let us keep being non-standard, Ryan said. Paul, take power from the rear shields and put it into the forward weapons. Karen, I want concentrated fire on that command station. Damage it, but do not destroy it. I want them able to evacuate. The Valor's weapons shifted targets. Energy cannons joined the railguns. The command station's shields were stronger than the frigates, meant to protect against asteroid impacts and random debris. But they were not meant for military-grade weapons. The shields collapsed under the sustained attack. The station's outer hull started to buckle. Explosions blossomed across its surface. Inside, the Zethric workers were probably panicking. This was supposed to be an easy assignment. Mine some rocks, process the materials, go home rich. Nobody had told them there would be shooting. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the station, reported Communications Officer Greg Palmer. They want to talk. Ryan checked the time. 2 minutes and 40 seconds since they had jumped in. They had been fighting for less than 3 minutes, and the Zethric were already trying to surrender. Already? Karen looked surprised. We barely started. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. They were not expecting a real fight. Put them through, Greg. A Zethric commander appeared on the main screen. He was a reptilian creature with scales and multiple eyes. Right now, those eyes were wide with fear. His translator made his hissing speech sound panicked. Unknown human vessel, stop firing. We surrender. This is just a mining operation. We do not want to die for this. Ryan kept his face serious. Inside, he felt a surge of satisfaction. This was working. This was actually working. This is Captain Ryan Foster of Earth's Federal Ship Valor, he said formally. You are conducting illegal operations in human territory. You have violated the frontier protocols. You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel from all mining platforms and facilities. Anything you leave behind becomes the property of Earth. Any ship that remains after 1 hour will be fired upon. Do you understand? But the Council said. The Zethric commander started to say. The Council is not here, Ryan interrupted. His voice was cold. You have 1 hour? Use it wisely, he cut the transmission. Around the bridge, his crew was trying not to cheer out loud. They had done it. They had actually done it. They are withdrawing, Karen reported. All 3 mining platforms are beginning evacuation procedures. The surviving frigate is moving to escort the command station. They are preparing to leave the system. Claire was watching her displays carefully. Suddenly, she looked up with concern. Captain, I am reading multiple jump signatures. Incoming ships. A lot of them. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. Zethric reinforcements. Negative, Claire said. She sounded confused. These are Council security codes. It is an official Council fleet. 12 ships. The tactical display updated to show the new arrivals. They were ships from different Council species, all marked with official emblems. They came out of their jumps and immediately moved into positions surrounding the Valor. Paul whistled softly. So much for not caring about what happens here. Ryan stood up from his command chair. Looks like we got their attention. Greg, are they hailing us? Yes, sir. It is Chairman Vorath himself. Of course it is, Ryan said. Put him on screen. Chairman Vorath appeared. The alien leader looked different than he had at the Council chamber. Before he had been calm and dismissive. Now he looked unsettled, maybe even worried. Human vessel, you have engaged in unauthorized military action, Vorath said. He was trying to sound authoritative, but it did not quite work. You will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded. Ryan stayed on his feet. He looked calm even though his heart was pounding. Chairman Vorath, how nice of you to show up after we handled the situation ourselves. The Zethric forces were operating in violation of the frontier protocols. Since the Council refused to act, Earth took the necessary steps to defend our territory. You had no authority, Vorath started. We had every authority. Ryan cut him off. The Council's own charter says every species has the right to defend their home system. I suggest you read Article 7, Section 3 before you accuse us of breaking laws. There was silence on the channel. Ryan could see Vorath turning to talk with someone off-screen, probably checking if what Ryan said was true. It was true, of course. Earth had studied the Council Charter very carefully. Finally, Vorath spoke again. His tone was more careful now. The Council will review this incident. You will come to Council space for a hearing. Will there be formal charges against us? Ryan asked, another pause. That will be determined. The transmission ended. The Council ship stayed in position around the Valor, but they did not move closer. They were watching and waiting. Ryan sat back down in his command chair. His legs felt a little shaky, but he did not let it show. Well, he said to his crew, I think we just made ourselves famous. Karen was grinning. The look on Vorath's. 3 weeks after the battle in the Sol system, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The Great Assembly Hall was more crowded than usual. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the humans who had dared to fight back. Daniel Pierce stood at the speaker's podium again. But this time he was not alone. Captain Ryan Foster stood on his right, still wearing his military uniform. Admiral Frank Morgan stood on his left. Behind them sat a full group of Earth's diplomatic and military leaders. They looked calm and professional, but Daniel could feel the tension in the air. The mood in the chamber was completely different from his last visit. Before, the delegates had been chatting and laughing, barely paying attention. Now everyone was quiet. They were watching the humans carefully. Some looked angry. Some looked curious. A few looked almost afraid. Chairman Vorath called the session to order. His forearms moved in formal gestures as he spoke. We gather today to address the unprecedented actions of the human species. Captain Foster, you destroyed Zethric military vessels and forced their operations to leave the Sol system. Explain why you committed this act of aggression. Ryan stepped forward. He did not look nervous at all. Chairman, I disagree with your description. What we did was not aggression. The Zethric were violating the frontier protocols. These protocols specifically protect the home systems of developing species. When Earth asked this council for help, we were mocked and dismissed. We therefore used our legal right to self-defense. Ambassador Kelleth of the Vryn Collective leaned forward in his high seat. You speak of rights, but your species has barely been part of the galactic community for 1 generation. You do not have the standing to make such claims. Admiral Frank spoke up. Then perhaps the council should explain what gives someone standing. Do we need a certain number of colonies? A specific level of technology? Or do we just need to be friends with the powerful species who want to take whatever they want? Whispers spread through the chamber. Frank had just accused the council of favoritism, of protecting the strong and ignoring the weak. It was a bold thing to say. A new voice joined the discussion. It was deep and commanding. The humans make a fair point. The speaker was Ambassador Torin from the Keltheran Commonwealth. His species was known for their military strength and their respect for law. I have reviewed the records of the previous petition. The Zethric operations clearly violated the established protocols. The human petition was rejected not because it was wrong, but because everyone assumed humans could not enforce their rights. But that is exactly the problem, Daniel added. If the council only protects species that can already defend themselves, then what is the point of the council? You exist to bring justice and order to the galaxy, but justice should not depend on how strong you are. Chairman Vorath looked angry now. His stone-like skin seemed to darken. You dare to lecture this council? You destroyed ships and seized property without authorization. These are the actions of criminals. We followed the law, Ryan said firmly. We asked for help through proper channels. When that failed, we used the legal provisions for self-defense. Every action we took is allowed under the council's own charter. If you have a problem with what we did, maybe you should admit that your charter is only enforced when it is convenient. The chamber erupted. Delegates were shouting at each other in dozens of different languages. Some supported the Zethric, saying order must be maintained. Others, especially smaller and weaker species, began supporting Earth. They had also suffered from the council's selective enforcement. They understood what the humans were saying. An elderly voice called for silence. Everyone stopped talking. The voice belonged to Elder Counselor Merrix. She was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, over 300 years old. When she spoke, even Chairman Vorath listened. Merrix rose slowly from her seat. She moved with the careful motions of great age, but her voice was still clear and strong. I have served on this council for 3 centuries, she began. In that time I have watched us lose our way. We were founded to bring justice to all species, great and small, but we have become corrupt. We protect those with power and dismiss those without it. She turned to look at the human delegation. These humans have reminded us of something we forgot. Law without enforcement is meaningless. Justice delayed is the same as justice denied. They did not commit a crime. They simply refused to wait patiently while their home was stolen from them. Vorath tried to interrupt, but Marix raised her hand. I am not finished, Chairman. The real question is not whether humanity acted rashly. The question is why they felt they had to act at all. And the answer should shame us all. She looked around the chamber at all the assembled delegates. I propose that we conduct a full review of the frontier protocols and how they are enforced. Furthermore, I recommend that Earth be granted full membership in this council with voting rights. They have proven they deserve to stand among us as equals. Now the chamber really exploded. Some delegates cheered. Others shouted in protest. Arguments broke out between different species. Through it all, the human delegation stood quietly. They were letting the council fight with itself over its own failures. Ambassador Kelleth stood up. The insect-like being was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Elder Marix speaks with wisdom. I was wrong to dismiss the human petition. The Vryn Collective changes its position. We support full membership for Earth. One by one, other ambassadors stood and voiced their support. The momentum was shifting. Species that had laughed at Earth 6 months ago were now arguing that humans deserved equal status. Chairman Vorath could see which way things were going. He spoke quietly with his advisors. Finally, he struck his chime for order. When the chamber was quiet again, he spoke in a formal tone. The matter will be put to a vote. All delegates in favor of granting Earth full council membership and initiating a review of enforcement procedures indicate now. Lights began appearing across the chamber as delegates cast their votes. The count appeared on displays for everyone to see. It was not unanimous. Some species still voted against Earth, but the majority was clear and strong. Earth had won. Daniel felt something release in his chest. They had done it. Earth was no longer just an observer. They were now full members of the Galactic Council with the same rights as any other species. As the session ended and delegates began to leave, Ambassador Torrin approached the human group. The Keltheran warrior bowed slightly in respect. Captain Foster, your ship impressed many observers today. The Keltheran Commonwealth would be interested in discussions about defensive technology and tactical training. Other ambassadors were approaching now too. Species that had ignored Earth before suddenly wanted to talk. They wanted to learn about human weapons and tactics. They wanted to form alliances and trade agreements. Admiral Frank handled the requests carefully. Earth is willing to share knowledge with partners who respect sovereignty and equality. We believe in cooperation, not domination. Ryan watched it all happen with amazement. A year ago, Earth had been nothing to these species. Now they were being treated as equals, all because they had stood up for themselves. Later, back in their quarters, the human delegation gathered to process what had happened. Commander Lisa Hayes poured drinks for everyone. She raised her glass. To justice, she said simply. To courage, Daniel added. To Earth, Frank finished. They drank together. Through the window, they could see other council ships and stations. This was their galaxy now, too. They had earned their place in it. Senator Patricia Green, who had traveled to the council for the hearing, smiled at them. The president is very pleased. He wants to know what our next steps should be. Frank pulled up some information on a tablet. Several species have already reached out about technology exchanges. Others want to discuss mutual defense pacts. We need to be careful about which partnerships we form. But we also need to follow through on what we said, Daniel pointed out. We talked about justice and fair enforcement. Now we need to help make that happen, not just for Earth, but for all the species that have been ignored by the Council. Ryan nodded. We opened a door today. Now we need to make sure it stays open. Lisa looked at each of them. This is just the beginning. We won a political victory today, but there will be species that resent what we did, species that see us as upstarts who got lucky. We need to stay vigilant, and we need to stay strong, Frank added. The Valor proved that human ships can compete with alien technology. But one ship is not enough. We need to continue building our fleet. Patricia made notes on her device. I will work with Congress on funding. After today, I do not think we will have trouble getting support for military expansion. They talked late into the night, planning Earth's future among the stars. They discussed ship designs and diplomatic strategies. They talked about which species to approach for alliances and which to be careful around. But underneath all the practical planning, there was something else. A feeling of pride and accomplishment. Earth had been dismissed and mocked, but humans had refused to accept that judgment. They had stood up and demanded respect, and they had gotten it. Outside, the station's artificial day cycle was ending. Lights dimmed to simulate night, but inside the human quarters, the lights stayed on. There was too much to do, too. 1 year had passed since Earth's confrontation with the Zethric Empire. High above Earth in orbit floated a massive new space station called Unity Platform. It was a joint project between humanity and 6 different alien species. The station was huge, with multiple sections designed to accommodate different types of biology. Some areas had high gravity for heavy worlders. Others had special atmospheres for species that breathed different gases than humans. Admiral Frank Morgan walked through the international section of the station with Ambassador Torin. Through the large windows, Earth hung below them like a blue and white jewel. Beyond Earth, they could see construction frames where new ships were being built. The skeletal structures would soon become warships, adding to Earth's growing fleet. "Your construction capability is remarkable," Torin said. His translator gave his words a tone of respect. 43 warships completed in 1 standard year. Most species need 10 years to accomplish such expansion. Frank smiled slightly. Humans are good at building things quickly when we are motivated, and having several species share their manufacturing techniques helped a lot. "You mean the technology exchange agreements?" Torin replied. "A clever negotiation. You traded human engineering methods and tactical knowledge for advanced materials and better propulsion systems." "We prefer to call it partnership," Frank said, something the old council had forgotten how to do. They arrived at the main conference center. Inside, Daniel Pierce was speaking to representatives from 37 different species. The room was crowded. Some delegates sat in chairs. Others floated in special fields designed for zero-gravity species. A few were connected via hologram because they could not survive in the station's environment. Daniel saw Frank enter and paused his presentation. "Admiral Morgan, perfect timing. We were just discussing the Frontier Protection Initiative." Frank took his place at the main table. Around him sat beings from dozens of worlds. Some of these species had mocked Earth just a year ago. Now they were eager partners in reforming how the galaxy was governed. "The proposal is straightforward," Frank began. "Any developing species that faces resource exploitation or territorial violations can request help from the Coalition. We will send response forces made up of ships from multiple member species. This ensures no single species dominates the process. It also ensures that enforcement actually happens." Ambassador Kelleth, who now strongly supported human initiatives, spoke up. "This is a significant improvement over the Council's old methods. The Vryn Collective pledges 3 patrol groups to support the initiative. The Keltheran Commonwealth commits 5 battle groups," Torin added immediately. One by one, species made their pledges. What had started as Earth's protest against injustice had grown into a movement involving 37 worlds. Together, they were creating a new system of galactic governance based on actual enforcement of laws, not just empty promises. In a different part of the station, Dr. Helen Carter was giving a tour to a group of alien scientists and engineers. They stood in front of massive holographic displays showing technical specifications for various human innovations. "The key insight," Helen explained, "was understanding that innovation requires a different mindset than optimization. Council technology is excellent, but it has been optimized for the same purposes for centuries. Humans approach these problems from a different angle. We ask not how do we use this technology, but how do we improve it?" A Vryn engineer examined the display showing shield technology. His multiple eyes moved independently as he studied different parts of the schematic. "This shield cycling algorithm achieves 40% better efficiency than our current systems." "How did you discover this?" "By questioning assumptions," Helen replied. "Your shields are designed to maintain constant coverage, but that requires a lot of power. We asked what if instead of constant coverage we cycle the shields very rapidly, so fast that weapons still hit shielding, but the shields have time to recharge between hits. It uses less power and provides better protection." Another scientist, this one from a species that looked like floating jellyfish, pulsed with colors that the translator interpreted as excitement. "And you share these improvements freely with Coalition partners?" "Absolutely," Helen confirmed. "Because the goal is not human dominance. The goal is raising everyone's capabilities. When all of us have access to better technology, the only way to maintain an advantage is through continued innovation, which benefits everyone. On the military section of the station, Captain Ryan Foster was conducting a tactical seminar. The room was filled with officers from multiple species. They watched as Ryan ran a simulation of the battle against the Zethric. Traditional council tactics emphasize formation discipline, Ryan explained as the simulation played. Ships stay in preset patterns and follow standard response protocols. This works well against pirates and raiders, but it becomes predictable against a prepared opponent. The simulation showed the Valor emerging from its jump and immediately attacking. The Zethric ships tried to respond, but their movements were slow and predictable. The Valor dodged their fire easily. We succeeded because we abandoned the standard playbook, Ryan continued. Random evasion patterns instead of calculated ones. Aggressive power management that shifted energy between systems based on need. Unconventional attack vectors that the enemy could not anticipate. A Keltheran officer named Commander Shen studied the display carefully. This requires exceptional crew coordination. Most species rely heavily on automated systems for such decisions. And that is exactly the weakness, Ryan pointed out. Automated systems follow programmed responses. They are predictable. Human crews are trained to think independently and adapt in real time. That unpredictability is what gives us an advantage. Lieutenant Karen Hughes joined the presentation. She had been promoted after the successful mission. We have developed training programs that can help. We created simulation scenarios specifically designed to break predictable thinking patterns. After 6 months of training with these programs, Allied crews show significant improvement in adaptive responses. The session continued for several hours. Alien officers asked questions and shared their own insights. It was a genuine exchange of knowledge. Humans learned from alien experience with advanced technology. Aliens learned from human tactical flexibility and innovation. In the diplomatic wing, Daniel met privately with Elder Counselor Marix. The ancient being moved slowly, but her mind was still sharp. She sipped a drink that was safe for her biology while Daniel drank coffee. "You have accomplished something remarkable," Marix said. Her voice had a quality like wind through trees. "In 1 year, you have reformed galactic politics more than I did in 300 years. You made it possible, Elder," Daniel replied respectfully. "Your speech at the council gave us legitimacy. Without that, we would have been seen as criminals." "Perhaps," Marix said thoughtfully, "but I only spoke truth. You acted on it. That is much harder." She paused. "You should know there is resistance. Chairman Vorath and his supporters see your initiative as a threat to their authority." "It is a threat to their authority," Daniel said bluntly, "because their authority was based on selective enforcement and exploitation. We are offering an alternative. And if they try to suppress this alternative by force," Daniel met her gaze steadily, "then they will learn the same lesson the Zethric learned. Humanity does not back down from bullies. We do not care how old or powerful they claim to be. If they want a fight, we will give them one." Marix made a sound that might have been laughter. "You're either very brave or very foolish, young human." "Probably both," Daniel admitted with a smile. "But we are also right, and we have proven we can defend what is right." "Indeed you have," Marix agreed. "That is why I support you. The galaxy needs species that will stand up for principle, not just profit." 6 months later, the Galactic Council held a vote on formally recognizing the Frontier Protection Initiative. Chairman Vorath had tried everything to block the measure. He had called it illegal, dangerous, and destabilizing. But the political landscape had changed too much. When the votes were counted, 73 species supported recognition. Only 15 voted against, mostly those who had benefited from the old system of selective enforcement. The initiative was now official council policy. After the vote, Frank found himself surrounded by ambassadors. Some wanted to join the initiative. Others proposed new cooperative projects. Species that had never even spoken to Earth before were now eager to form partnerships. Lieutenant Greg Palmer, who had been promoted to commander and now served as Frank's aide, helped manage the flood of requests. "Admiral, we have 17 formal alliance proposals, 32 technology exchange requests, and 46 species asking for meetings. This is unprecedented." Frank looked at the list and shook his head in amazement. "A year ago, we were nobody. Now we cannot keep up with everyone who wants to work with us." That evening, The core leadership team gathered in the Valor's conference room. The ship had become a symbol of Earth's emergence on the galactic stage. It seemed appropriate to meet there to celebrate their achievements. Ryan raised a glass. To defiance, to standing up when it would have been easier to sit down. 2 years after Earth had stood up to the Galactic Council, the changes were visible everywhere. The Unity platform had expanded to 3 times its original size. Ships from 40 different species docked there regularly. The station had become the center of a new way of thinking about galactic governance. Admiral Frank Morgan was retiring. After 30 years of military service and 2 years of reshaping how species interacted in space, he was ready to step back. But before he left, he wanted to see the latest achievement of the human-led coalition. The new ship hung in space near the station. It was called the GCS Harmony, and it was the first vessel designed and built by multiple species working together from the beginning. The ship combined Keltheran weapons, Vrin propulsion, human tactical systems, and innovations from a dozen other species. It was larger than the Valor and far more powerful. Captain Ryan Foster, who would command the Harmony, gave Frank a tour of the new ship. They walked through corridors designed to accommodate multiple species comfortably. The bridge had stations for beings of different sizes and needs. The engineering section featured technology from 6 different worlds, all integrated seamlessly. "This is what we fought for," Frank said quietly. "Not just Earth's right to defend itself. This different species working together as equals." Ryan nodded. "The Council still exists. Chairman Vorath is still in charge, but he has been forced to change how things work. The Frontier Protection Initiative has responded to 17 incidents in the last year. Species that would have been exploited are now protected." They reached the bridge. Lieutenant Claire Bennett was now the Harmony's navigator. Engineer Paul Martinez was the chief of engineering. The crew was mixed, with humans working alongside Keltheran, Vrin, and others. "How does it feel to command such a diverse crew?" Frank asked. "Natural," Ryan replied. "The first few weeks had challenges. Different species communicate differently, think differently, but we worked through it. Now they operate like they have been together for years." Frank smiled. "Good. That is what I hope to hear." He looked around the bridge one more time. "I'm glad I got to see this before I leave. It makes everything we did feel worthwhile." After the tour, there was a ceremony. The Unity platform's main hall was packed with representatives from dozens of species. They had gathered to honor Frank's retirement and to celebrate the anniversary of Earth's victory over the Zethric. Daniel Pierce, who was now Earth's chief ambassador to the Council, spoke first. 2 years ago, we were nobody, a young species that barely mattered to the great powers of the galaxy. Today, we are partners with those powers. We are equals. That transformation did not happen by accident. It happened because people like Admiral Frank Morgan refused to accept injustice. Ambassador Torrin stepped forward. The Keltheran warrior bowed deeply, a sign of great respect. "The Keltheran Commonwealth honors Admiral Morgan. He showed us that strength and honor can exist together, that military power should serve justice, not domination. Our people have learned much from humans. We are better for it." Speaker after speaker praised Frank's leadership, but Frank himself looked uncomfortable with all the attention. When it was his turn to speak, he kept it brief. "I am just one person," Frank said. "The real heroes are the people who stood up when it mattered. Captain Foster and the crew of the Valor, who risked everything in that first battle. Ambassador Pierce, who kept arguing for justice even when he was laughed at. Dr. Carter and her team, who proved that human innovation could compete with ancient alien technology. And all the humans back on Earth who supported us even when success seemed impossible." He paused and looked around the room. "But I also want to thank the alien species who joined us. Elder Counselor Marix, who spoke truth when others stayed silent. Ambassador Torrin, who recognized that the old system was broken and needed fixing. All the species who chose to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. This is not just Earth's victory. This is everyone's victory." The hall erupted in applause. Beings of all shapes and sizes cheered. It was a moment of genuine unity, the kind that had been rare in the galaxy before Earth changed things. After the ceremony, Frank had private meetings with several people. Dr. Helen Carter brought him technical reports on the latest human innovations. "We have made breakthroughs in energy storage that will make the next generation of ships twice as efficient. And the joint research program with the Vrin has led to discoveries neither species would have made alone." Commander Lisa Hayes, Now Admiral Hayes, after her promotion, discussed fleet deployment. We have 78 ships operational now, another 40 in construction. We are coordinating patrols with allied species to ensure complete coverage of frontier zones. No one will be caught off guard like we were with the Zethric. Senator Patricia Green talked about the political situation. Chairman Vorath's faction is weakening. More and more council members are joining the Reform Coalition. Within a year, we might have the votes to restructure the entire council charter. Each meeting reinforced the same message. Earth had not just defended itself. Earth had started a movement that was still growing and gaining strength. That evening, Frank stood alone in his quarters on the Unity platform. He looked out at Earth below. From orbit, it was easy to see the changes. New orbital facilities surrounded the planet. Ships came and went constantly. Earth had gone from isolated to interconnected in just 2 years. There was a knock on his door. When he opened it, he found Elder Counselor Merrick standing there. The ancient being moved with the help of a floating support device, but her eyes were bright and alert. "May I come in?" she asked. "Of course, Elder." Frank stepped aside to let her enter. They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Merrick spoke. "I wanted to thank you personally before you leave. You gave me hope that I had not felt in centuries." "You gave us the legitimacy we needed," Frank replied. "Without your support at that council session, everything could have gone differently. Perhaps. But you gave me something more valuable. You reminded me why I joined the council in the first place 300 years ago. I wanted to build a galaxy where justice mattered, where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. I thought I had failed at that dream. Then humans came along and proved it was still possible." Frank felt humbled. "We just did what we had to do." "That is what makes it remarkable," Merrick said. "You did not seek glory or power. You simply refused to accept injustice. That kind of moral courage is rare. I hope your species never loses it." "So do I," Frank agreed. "Though I worry sometimes. Success can make people comfortable. Comfortable people forget why they fought in the first place." "Then it is good you have people like Captain Foster and Ambassador Pierce," Merrick said. "Young people who remember what it was like to be dismissed and ignored. They will keep the fire burning." After Merrick's left, Frank spent a long time looking at Earth. He thought about his long career, the battles he had fought, the difficult decisions he had made. All of it had led to this moment, to a galaxy that was just a little bit fairer than it had been before. The next day, Frank attended one final meeting. The coalition leadership gathered to discuss future plans. There were now 47 species in the coalition, with more requesting membership every month. Ryan presented a proposal. "We should establish a permanent rapid response fleet. Ships from multiple species always ready to deploy when frontier violations occur. Right now, we coordinate after incidents happen. We should be proactive." Ambassador Kelleth agreed. "The Vryn support this proposal. We will contribute 8 ships to the rapid response fleet." Other species quickly pledged ships as well. Within an hour, they had commitments for 60 vessels from 15 different species. The rapid response fleet would be the largest multi-species military force in galactic history. Daniel raised another point. "We should also expand our diplomatic efforts. There are still many species that have not joined the coalition, some because they benefit from the old system, but others simply because they do not know about us. We need to reach out to them." "Agreed," said a holographic representative from a species that lived in gas giants. "My people only learned of the coalition 6 months ago. We immediately wanted to join. There are probably many others in the same situation." The meeting continued for hours. They discussed exploration initiatives to find new species. They talked about joint scientific projects. They planned educational exchanges so young beings from different worlds could learn together. Through it all, Frank watched with satisfaction. This was his legacy, not the battles he had won or the ships he had commanded. This, a galaxy learning to work together. When the meeting ended, Ryan approached him. "Admiral, I know you are retiring, but the Coalition would like to offer you a position as senior advisor. You would not have daily responsibilities, but we would value your guidance." Frank smiled. "I appreciate the offer, but I think it is time for my generation to step back. You young people have proven you can handle things, better than we did, honestly. I will be available if you need advice, but this is your show now." Ryan looked like he wanted to argue, but then he nodded. "I understand, but know that you will always be welcome here." You started something that will outlast all of us. Frank returned to Earth a few